Welcome to the Good Grief Believer podcast. My name is Chris Frazier, and I recently joined Julie Craig as a co-host for the podcast, and this is my very first one. I'm super excited, and I am here with my good friend, Heidi Folsom. Heidi, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi, my name is Heidi Folsom, and I grew up in Draper, Utah, and then I moved to Spokane, Washington 25 years ago with my husband. We've been married for 31 years. We have 6 children and 4 grandchildren. And I like to sew and I like to go to the gym. That's pretty much my whole life.
Very nice. I also like many of those same things. So Heidi, can you tell me a little bit about the person you lost? And just maybe some favorite memories, what you love about them, just kind of fill us in on who we're talking about today.
We are talking about my youngest daughter, Zion Emma. And she was our little bonus caboose. She's 21 years younger than my oldest and 12 years younger than my previous youngest. And she was born with an extra copy of her 18th chromosome. So she was just pure light and joy. And she filled our lives with sunshine the whole time she was here. She passed away when she was 3.5.
And how long ago was that?
About 3.5 years ago.
So she's been gone about the same time that she was here.
Yeah. Yep.
How was that?
This birthday was harder because she's officially been gone more birthdays than she was here. But we try to make the birthday fun. We enjoy donating things to the hospital where she spent a lot of time. So we bought stuffed animals for her birthday to donate to the hospital. And we always have a birthday cake and sing her happy birthday.
I love that. What a great way to remember her. So let's talk about some of the early thoughts and experiences that happened just after Zion died. What was that like for you, right kind of at the beginning?
Right at the beginning, I really struggled because I felt like, especially my church community, was just trying to explain away her death with, okay, well, now she's in heaven. And so everything's fine. But I didn't feel fine. And so going to church was hard. Talking to my faith-based friends was hard because I just felt like they just wanted me to be okay. They just wanted to be like, well, she's happy, she's healthy, she's fine. And I was like, she was happy and healthy here. And so it was a real struggle and a real faith crisis for me, where I was trying to figure out where I fit in to my church community. And luckily, which is silly, my friends at the gym really turned out to be really supportive, and they would just cry with me when I needed to cry and walk across the room and hug me in the middle of a workout because they could see that I was struggling. And my good friend Chris, who we're talking to, was also a huge support because it was just the people who checked on me just to check on me. You know, after the dinners, people stopped bringing dinners and people stopped bringing flowers. You just feel all alone. You feel like everybody else is moving on with their life, but you're still trying to figure out how to get out of bed in the morning.
Yep. I can definitely identify with that. It's interesting that you said about people feeling like they wanted you to just be okay. I think that that's one of the reasons why we're doing this, right? Why Julie started this podcast is because I think a lot of people have that experience where others try to explain away their grief or try to make them feel better, instead of just sitting with them in it and recognizing that grief is a human experience, and you can have all the faith in the world, but that doesn't take away the pain that you feel, and feeling that grief and pain doesn't negate your faith. Like, it's not like black or white. You don't have to have either or. You can be in immense pain and hurting and still also have faith and still also cling to that faith. The two things can coexist, but I feel like a lot of people who haven't been through profound grief, a lot of people don't recognize that. And so they just feel like, oh, at least, or, like you said, she's in a better place, or she's with Jesus. Okay, yeah, that's all great and fine, but that doesn't fix the hole in my heart, right? So I'm really glad that you brought that up. And no, it's not silly that your friends at the gym were your support. I think grief really gives people the opportunity to show their true colors and to support people in a way that they maybe didn't anticipate until the event happens. I think you find people in unexpected places and find support in unexpected places. I think that's one of the beautiful things that can come from grief, is finding that support in places that you would never have guessed.
Yeah, I think I was just expecting to have support from my friends at church, and it just didn't happen. And so it was extra disappointing.
Yeah, it was a loss on top of the loss that you already had, right?
Right.
Talk to me about your public grief versus your private experience. Like, what was that like for you? Were you different in public than you were in private? How was your grief affected, public versus private?
I feel like my public grief has been surprising to people, because people just expected me to say I was fine. And when they asked me how I was doing, I'd be like, I'm not okay today. Like, I'm here and I'm doing what I need to do to take care of my kids and take care of my responsibilities, but I'm not okay. Like, I don't feel okay. And they would just kind of be like, they wouldn't know what to say.
Now what?
Because they would be like, that's not what they just wouldn't know how to answer or what to do. And I mean, for the most part, I kept my complete falling apart to home, because in general, I don't like people to see me cry. But over the last 3.5 years, I've learned that, you know what, the tears are too close to the surface. So if I was going to not let anybody see me cry, I'd have to stay home all the time, because the tears come quickly when I talk about my girl and how much I miss her.
Yeah, well, she was your buddy for a long time. All the rest of the kids were at school and it was just you and her.
Yeah, she was just my little sidekick, and she was medically fragile, so she required a lot of care. 24-hour around the clock care, but it was truly a joy to take care of her, because I knew that I didn't know how many days I would get with her.
Yeah, changes your perspective for sure. You appreciate every moment.
It's true. I feel like she only got the best of me, the rest of my kids. But she was never naughty, so
right.
She never had to be put in timeout. She never got scolded.
So you brought up your other kids. Let's go there for a minute. What was that like for you? How did it affect your grief, knowing that? So, like, it's one thing to lose a child, right? But then watching the rest of your family cope with that loss. What was it like for watching your kids grieve the loss of their sibling? You know what I mean?
It was really a difficult place to be, because I didn't feel okay. And my husband and I were grieving very differently. He's like a put your shoulder to the wheel kind of guy. He just started working harder. That's how he dealt with his grief. It's how he's still dealing with his grief. He works hard. And So for my kids, like, it's just hard to try and keep it together enough to take care of them and take care of their grief when you're feeling so broken yourself. So I only had one of my kids that agreed to do some counseling. She's the next oldest one, then Zion, and so she did some counseling and stuff, and she missed the most school. She had a lot of mental health days. We missed a lot of school, and a lot of days where she just couldn't quite do it. But I just tried to support her in that, and thankfully the school was really supportive too. I mean, they didn't have to be, but we missed a lot of school days and had a lot of mental health days where we just stayed home and cried together. Most of my other kids are more like their dad and just dug in and moved through. But we definitely have days where we just cry together, and that's okay.
Yeah, it totally is. It's super hard as a parent to watch your kid's grief too. Like, there's your own grief over the relationship that you lost with your kid, but then watching them grieve the loss of their sibling is like a whole other layer to your own grief, because then you want to make them better too, because that's what mommies do, right? But you can't. So then, like, it's a hot mess.
It is a hot mess. That's exactly right.
So talk to me about who could you count on when you felt the most agonizing grief, and what did they say or do that made a difference in that time? Like you talked about how, sometimes people would ask if you were okay. And then when you gave them an answer that was different than what they were expecting, like, what could they have said in that moment that would have made a difference?
I feel like
sort of two
the
questions.
People who, I know,
Sorry.
I feel like the people who just, mostly said, I'm here for you, and I see you, and I see that you're hurting. To me, that was a lot more helpful than the, because Zion's life expand wasn't expected to be long. Many people were just like, oh, well, okay, well, she died. And I was like, well, that's not exactly how I'm feeling about this. Because she still left us very unexpectedly and very quickly. And so it kind of left me in this place of where some people were just kind of like, oh, well, sorry she died. And then, other people, the ones that really helped, I'm not sure there was any like really one specific person. It was more like a group of people, that it seemed to be like, if one didn't think to check on me that day, then someone else did. And I feel like the people who just took that time to even just send a text message and say, hey, you're on my mind, you're in my heart. The people that shared what they remembered about Zion was super helpful, because it's one of my greatest fears is that she'll be forgotten. And I don't want her to be forgotten. And so when someone shares a memory about her, it's super special to me. And it's fun because other people remember different things than I remembered. They had different experiences with her and her light and her joy. And so it's fun to hear other people's memories of her were also very special when people share, well, even still, when people share something that they remember is very special to me.
I love that. I think you're totally right. When somebody loses a child at a very early age, the fear is real, that you're the only person who's going to remember their life and remember that they existed. And I feel like as a parent of a child that's died, the only way that you feel like you can still parent them is by helping their memory to live on in some way, right? Whether it's paying it forward or sharing stories about them or whatever, like, you feel like that's the only way that you can parent them anymore. Your living kids, it's easy. Oh, how's so-and-so doing? Oh, well, they have this many kids now and they're living here and they just got married and da-da-da. We can talk about our living kids easy, right? And we parent them that way, right? But with our kids that have died, there's just not an easy way to do that other than to have people who are willing to listen and share and talk about them.
We recently did a walk to commemorate her birthday, and it was fun to walk and talk with the different people and just remember the time that we had with her.
That's a really beautiful way to bring everyone together and have that experience. I love it. Let's talk for a minute about triggers. Do you experience certain triggers that seem to bring back waves of grief? And if so, kind of tell us about those and what they look like for you, or if there's any patterns to your triggers. Kind of just let's talk about triggers.
I'm not sure there is a pattern to the triggers. It can be anything, honestly. Some days I'm really good with playing with my other friends' kids that have kids of similar ages as my daughter, and I'm okay. And other days I finish playing with the kids and I get in the car and I sob for an hour because I don't get to play with my girl anymore. So, I'm not sure that there's really a pattern. And it could be, sometimes it's the silliest thing. Sometimes it's because a butterfly floated across my windshield when I was at a stoplight. Sometimes it's because, even still 3.5 years, randomly in a sock drawer, you find something that belongs to her that got stuck in the back of a drawer somewhere, and you find it and you remember that she was here. And there's definitely things that I haven't done yet that I still need to do to get through some of her things that are still right where she left them, 3.5 years ago.
And that's okay. As someone who has had to pack up the remains of their child and all of those things, the stuff that they left behind, it's super hard. So it's okay. You take all the time you need.
Yeah, there are things that haven't needed to be moved. So they're still there.
And that's okay. So we kind of talked a little bit about this earlier, but let's talk a little bit more about it. Sometimes people say things to a grieving person, maybe with good intentions, but they are unhelpful. What is your experience with those? Like, what are some of the things that people would say that that were super hurtful, but actually, like, they were trying to be helpful, but actually ended up being hurtful? And then maybe just give us some things of what they could have said or done differently.
I feel like most of the things that I felt were really hurtful were actually things that I had said prior to experiencing it. So, and I try to keep that in mind when somebody says something to me. But one of the most hurtful things to me, especially early on, was like, oh, well, she's in heaven now and she's happy and she's healthy. And she's with Jesus. Well, that's great, but I want her here with me. I don't want her to be with Jesus. I do. I just want her to be with me. Because mommies aren't supposed to bury their babies.
Amen.
It's out of order. And so I think those kind of comments are just hurtful, especially in the beginning. The ones that were like, oh, well, especially the ones that we knew that our time with her was going to be short, for people to comment like, oh, well, I guess she passed away. Like, excuse me? Like, I don't know why you would say that to somebody ever, actually. But a lot of the, church friends is just like, oh, well, she's in heaven and she's happy and she's healthy. I think that it's better to say more like, I'm sorry that she's gone, and I'm sorry that you miss her so much, because we all go to the same church. We all believe the same things. We all know she's happy and healthy in heaven. But it's nice when people acknowledge that even though she's happy and healthy in heaven, that I, as her mother, I miss her every second of every day. And I will for the rest of my life. Because I'm not gonna, because they would say, time is gonna heal. And I'm like, I don't understand how time's gonna heal this, because I can tell you 3.5 years later, I don't miss her any less today than I did the first minute that she passed away. If anything, I miss her more as time passes. And I feel like I'm getting farther away from the time when she was here.
What you were saying about like, you're going to miss her forever. I heard a quote recently where somebody said, they were talking about a friend of theirs that was grieving. And they said, well, how long is this person going to grieve? And the other person said, well, how long is their person going to be dead? Right? Like,
that's a good answer.
I know. I was like, oh, that's perfect. Because it really is true. Like, yes, it gets easier over time, but I really don't think it goes away. I think that you just get better at learning to live with it. I've often likened it to losing a limb, right? Like you're not going to obviously grow that limb back, right? You just learn how to adapt and do things differently without it, right? Mm-hmm. And I feel like it's the same with grief, like it never goes away. You just learn to live with it and make space for it. And yeah, it can be really hard when people say things like you said, it can be really hard to not feel like you're not allowed to have these feelings, Something that brought me a lot of peace and comfort was this story of Lazarus, right? Jesus knew that he was going to raise Lazarus from the dead, right? Like he knew that was going to happen. Like momentarily, it wasn't even like with us. We know that's going to happen someday, eventually in the future, right? Like we have that faith that will happen eventually. This is like, it's about to happen, right? And yet still he wept because of the pain of his friends, like if Jesus could weep knowing what he was about to do, then gosh dang it, I get to cry over my kid for as long as I dang well please.
That's right.
It's interesting how our culture handles grief, right? And how uncomfortable they are with big feelings like this, and like we talked about before, they want to explain it away and make it be okay. And it's okay that it's not okay. Like, yes, we know that we will be with our kids again. And that piece, that truth is comforting, but it still doesn't fix the pain that I feel right now that I'm not with my kid, right? And I can have that faith and feel the pain at the same time. It doesn't mean that I don't have that faith. It just means I'm a human having human experiences, and grief is part of that.
Mm-hmm. I think that's been one of my greatest lessons during all of this, is to learn that joy and sorrow can coexist in the same moment. Like I didn't know that before. I didn't understand that concept before. But I can be joyful that all of my living children are here singing my daughter happy birthday. And I can be extremely sad in the same moment that she's not here to sing happy birthday too. I mean, that's a big example, but even just little examples. I can sit and read happily to my grandchildren and enjoy their company and think that they're so cute. And in that same exact moment that I'm feeling so joyful to be with them, I can feel sorrow that my daughter is not here to read a story to anymore.
Yeah, I totally agree. I learned the same with my grief. Like nobody prepares you for that. Nobody says, hey, by the way, you're going to feel two totally opposite feelings at the exact same time. Where was that lesson? Because I missed it.
Yeah, and I was not prepared. Yeah, it will be your new normal, and you've got to figure it out.
Yeah. So what words or actions would you suggest to someone who's trying to support a grieving person? Like what's your advice to someone who comes to you and says, oh, this just happened to my sibling or my cousin or my whoever, how can I support them? What would you say?
I think especially in the early days, just be willing to sit with them and listen and let them cry. Don't try to make it better, because you can't. You cannot save them from this. You cannot. Nobody can make it better. Nobody can put a Band-Aid on this. Nobody can make it feel better, because it's not gonna feel better. It'll be easier to carry as the days go by. But I think, to me, that being willing to just check on somebody, the willingness to just sit with them and let them express the big feelings that they're feeling without trying to fix it, is huge. And I think it's been super helpful for me to meet other people who are further along the journey. Those are the people that have helped me realize that there's nothing wrong with my faith. It's not broken. There's nothing wrong with how I'm feeling. I'm not broken. Because, 25 years, 50 years down the road, and they still have tears come to their eyes, and they still, with tears in their eyes, will tell you how much they miss their child. And to me, that's just a huge relief, because I was feeling so broken and that my faith was so broken. But that's not what was really happening.
You were just having a human experience.
Yes, I was having a human experience.
I love that. Looking back, what can you identify that may have helped prepare you to emotionally or spiritually survive this experience? Like, do you feel like there was any kind of times in your life or things that happened that, like, you were able to draw from that strength to get through this?
Just for me, it was more like trying to do the things I knew were right, the things that, that were hard, but I still knew that they were the right things to do, because honestly, I was not prepared. I was not prepared at all. I mean, I thought that as a Christian, faith-going, church-loving girl, I was going to be prepared for the day that Heavenly Father would call her home. And I was not. I was not prepared. And that's why I felt so broken. Because I didn't understand. I just didn't understand how much it would hurt. Because I thought that I would be able to lean on, like, my faith. But at least for me, especially in the early days, leaning on my faith wasn't working. The normal things that helped me weren't working. Listening to music, spiritual music wasn't helping. It was grating on my brain. I couldn't listen to it. In the beginning, I couldn't read. Like, I literally could not read and comprehend what I had read. So, like, my brain was not capable of reading and remembering what I had read. So reading scriptures wasn't helpful. It was just so many things and because I was feeling so lost at church, like, going to church wasn't helpful. It was hard to pray because Heavenly Father just took my little girl home. So it was hard to pray.
How do you talk to someone you're so mad at?
Yeah, when you're so angry. And you're just wondering why he needed her more than you did.
There's actually a book, you saying that just reminded me. It's called, Dari could tell me in a hot minute because she's been begging me to read it. I read part of it.
The most helpful book that I've read so far is that it's okay that you're not okay.
That's where I was going to go next, actually. Well,
was the most helpful book that I read, because it was a book that wasn't trying to fix your feelings. It was a book just helping you realize that it was okay that you're feeling this way. It was okay that you're feeling broken. It's okay that it hurts.
That's what it's called. Even in the darkest hour, lament as a path to God. I've read part of it. I'm still working on it, but it basically kind of discusses how, like, when you withhold that grief and that, like, when you're upset with God for doing something, right? And if the only time you ever talk to him is when you're worshiping him and like, oh, yay, thank you so much. You know, like you're only telling him the good stuff. Imagine it like a parent, right? If your kid only ever talks to you about the good things that are happening in their lives, but they never come to you with the really, really deep, hard stuff. How genuine is that relationship, right? And so kind of the whole premise of the book is just how lament, that, you know, bearing yourself to God, and even kind of the anger and frustration and hurt that you're feeling can actually be a form of worship, right? And like turning to him in those moments can be worshipful. Like I said, I'm still reading through it, so I'm not totally explaining it the best, but it just, what you were saying reminded me of that, you know, like how do you talk to somebody? How do you talk to God, you know, when you're so mad at him?
When you're so angry.
Yeah. Like, what do you do when all of the things that you have been taught to the tools that you've learned over your life, what do you do when none of those work, right? Well, like, what's left?
Yeah. For me, I was just doing things robotically, honestly, just still going to church because I knew it was the right thing to do, and still doing the things that I knew I needed to do. I still took care of my family, and I still did all these things because I knew it was the right thing to do. But it was hard, especially in the beginning. It was really, really hard. But eventually it started feeling not as painful to do the things. And then I honestly am still looking for that peace beyond measure. I'm still looking for it. I'm still trying to prepare my heart to accept it when Heavenly Father sends it, because I'm still looking for it, and I'm still struggling with angry thoughts, even though they're not as many as they used to be. But I mean, I would be lying if I just said, oh, great, I just felt this peace and I'm fine, because that's not where I'm at.
Well, and I wonder how many of the people that you talked about just a minute ago about, you know, it's been 30, 50, however many years, would say the same thing you just said, right? Like, I don't know that they feel that overwhelming peace either. No. You know, I don't know. I mean, I can't speak for them, but
yeah, most of them say you're just barely in the beginning of this. You know, it just happened. That's usually the first thing they say. Oh, it just happened for you. Even though it's been 3.5 years. You know, my good friend that's 50 something years into her daughter passing away, she says, oh, it just happened.
Yeah, it's just the beginning.
It's just the beginning.
It feels like it's been, maybe, I don't know if this is this way for you, but for me in my grief, it feels like a moment and a lifetime at the same time. You know, like it feels like it just happened, but at the same time, it feels like a whole other lifetime ago.
I was like, it feels like it just happened. It depends on the day and how busy I am.
So we sort of alluded to this, but talk to me about like either a quote or a scripture or something that has been especially meaningful to you in your grief journey. Like, is there any kind of, or even a song, just what are some of the things that when you couldn't do your tools that you had been taught, you know, the prayer, scriptures, church, you did them out of habit, and they weren't fulfilling to you? What were some of the things that were? What got you through?
Honestly, for me, it was more finding a way to feel like I was still doing something for Zion. So for me, I started sewing blankets, receiving blankets for the hospital. And they all get a little tag that say Snuggles in memory of Zion Emma. And that was a major thing for me, and still is. Just, it's a way when I'm feeling like the world is too big and my life is too long, then it's a place that I can pour out my sorrow and my struggles and my, I can pray while I'm sewing. I can feel connected to heaven. I can feel connected to her when I'm sewing a blanket and putting her little name right on it. And then I know when somebody gets that blanket in the hospital that they might speak her name, even though they don't know her. They don't know anything about her. When they read the little tag, they're at least saying her name in their minds if they don't say it out loud. And for me, that was and is like a huge comfort to me, because it just helps that part of me that's worried that she's going to be forgotten. It hasn't really been like one specific quote or anything like that that's for me, other than the book. It's okay, because I say that to myself all the time. It's okay that you're not okay. Like, it's going to be fine.
That's awesome. I love what you said about the blankets. That's a great way to remember her, and I hadn't thought about what it would be like to have somebody else, total stranger, still say your kid's name, and like you're never going to know what happened with that. You're never going to know all of those families and all of those blankets, but they will know about Zion. And that's just such a beautiful way to let her memory live on. I love that. And I'm glad that you were able to find like comfort and meaning in that too. Like, just, I can totally see you sitting at your sewing machine, feeling all the feels as you're doing this beautiful act of service. That's so awesome. How would you say you have changed as a person because of your experience? Like, what's different about you now?
I feel like I'm more compassionate, especially towards other people's hurts. Even, it doesn't have to be grief. I feel like that it's easier for me to try to connect with someone when they're hurting than before, where it was just kind of easier to be like, oh, sure, I'll bring you dinner. Great. And never think about them again. But now, like, I feel my heart being more compassionate. I feel like I have a better understanding that every day is a gift, and that we need to live every day like the gift that it is, and share with others and serve others and love bigger and grumble less.
I love that. I'm going to ask one last question, and then we probably are going to have some extra time. So if there's anything that you feel like I didn't cover or that you want to talk about, then we can go there. So finally, what do you think it means to grieve well?
I don't know. Some days I think I'm grieving well, and some days I think I am not. I think that to grieve well, you have to find that place in yourself and in your world and with your people where it's okay to cry. And you have to find that place where you can support one another and just allow yourself the freedom and give yourself grace, I guess, is what I'm looking for. Give yourself the freedom and the grace to have a bad day, because they happen. Thankfully, not as frequently as in the beginning, but sometimes you just have a bad day, and it's okay. It's okay to sit on the couch and cry, and it's fine. Like, it's not going to hurt anybody. And honestly, you'll feel better if you let the tears out instead of trying to just march forward like nothing happened. I think for me, grieving well is allowing myself the freedom and the grace to tell someone I'm having a bad day. Like, it's okay. I know I'm actually not okay today, but I'm here, and I'm trying to do what I need to do. And I think that was a new concept for me, because I grew up in an era where you rub the dirt off your knee. Like, you don't cry when you fall and scrape your knee. You brush the dirt off and you keep going. So for me, learning how to express these big feelings has been a journey because it wasn't something that I was taught as a youth.
That totally makes sense. Is there anything else that you wanted to share that either I didn't ask or you wanted to talk about? Anything else you can think of?
I'm not sure. I mean, I could talk forever about Zion if you wanted me to tell you about her. I think I feel like I'm just starting to learn how to heal better. I'm just starting to allow myself to, I feel like I've been walking out of the fog of being angry, the fog of asking why. I feel like I've been doing better at giving myself time to heal and time to let my body heal from the trauma of losing her. And I feel like it's helping me to be a better mom and a better grandma by just taking the time to take care of myself and allow myself to find that place to heal.
I was going to ask you something else and I totally just forgot what it was.
Oh, no.
Earlier you talked about how your husband grieved differently than you. And I feel like that's a lot of times a kind of universal experience that women just grieve differently than men. So without like, you don't have to go into specifics, but
Right.
just how did you manage the difference in grief? Like, what was that like for you and how did you?
It was really hard because he wanted to just work harder. And then when he would find me crying, he would want to make it better. And so he was always trying to, which has worked in the past. We've been married a long time. You know, if Heidi's upset, then let's make her laugh and let's cheer her up. But I think it took us a while, and honestly, it was a little scary for a minute of like whether or not we were going to make it through losing a child, like our marriage, because we were grieving so differently. And I was angry because he kept trying to cheer me up, and he was angry because I didn't want to be cheered up. And
why won't you just let me fix you?
He just wanted to fix me, and I didn't want to be fixed. So I think that, we finally, again, so much grace to each other, so much kindness to each other, because he's still grieving the way he's grieving, and I'm still grieving the way I'm grieving. But neither one of us are trying to make the other grieve. I'm not trying to make him grieve like me, because I was upset that he wasn't crying as much as me. I was like, how can you not be crying as much as I am? Like, did you just, I felt frustrated. Like, did you just not love her as much as I loved her? Because why are you not crying? But that's just not how he was grieving. So giving him the grace and the kindness to grieve the way he needs to grieve, and him in turn learning that he wasn't going to fix me and he needed to just let me grieve the way I need to grieve. One of the things that we do together is in our travels, we put rocks out. We put little rocks out, little painted rocks. So if we go on a trip together, we put rocks out wherever we go, in places that we think are fun. And then also we collect rocks so that we have more rocks to paint. So if we go on a trip somewhere, then we also collect rocks as we're putting out rocks. We collect a new rock to paint. which is fun. So we've learned some things that we can do to grieve together, which has also been super helpful, because we're still grieving in our own ways, but we've also found ways that we can share that missing her together.
I love that. So you both have your own thing, but then there's also something you can do together as well.
Yeah.
That's awesome. What are some of the ways that you have found meaning in her loss? Like, that's like one of the phases of grief, right? It's like meaning making. And what are some of the things that you have found that give meaning to having lost her?
I'm not sure I could say I have meaning in losing her, but I have found, as I've really been working to allow myself to heal, is that as I'm coming out of the fog, I'm able to remember her better, and I'm able to, instead of focusing on the missing her, I'm able to better focus on how much fun she was when she was here, how much joy she spread to everyone that she met, to remember her with a better fondness, and to be proud of her and how hard she worked to be here with us for as long as she was. And so I'm not sure that finding meaning in is the right words, at least for me in my heart, because I still wish she was here.
Yeah, oh, totally. But I guess just like finding ways to make it hurt less, I guess. I don't know what I'm trying to ask.
No, that makes sense.
Like the blankets and the rocks and, like things that you can do to remember her, but also like make it feel better,
Yeah. Because so many things that we get to do now, it's underlined with that grief that we talked about, underlined with that sorrow. Because if Zion was still here and I still had a medically fragile child in my home, then I wouldn't be able to go on a fun trip with my husband.
Yeah.
Because I would need to be here with her. So when we've done fun trips, then it still has that underlying, or if I, when the kids were still in school, if I went on the road trip to go to Wenatchee to the basketball games or whatever, I wouldn't have been able to do that prior. If she was still here, I wouldn't be able to do that. So it always is underlined with that little bit of sorrow, because I'm now doing and experiencing things I wouldn't be able to do if she was here. If I still had a medically fragile child in my home, I wouldn't be able to leave for days at a time.
Do you ever feel guilty when you're doing that? Like, do you feel guilty for having a good time and enjoying yourself?
Especially in the beginning, yes.
I only asked that because I felt the same way after our daughter died. Like, I would go and do something and I'd tell myself exactly that. Like, oh, I wouldn't be doing this if Emily were still alive. But then there was like guilt and kind of added grief around. But then that means that does that mean that I'm grateful that she's not here because I'm happy that I get to do the thing that I'm doing that I couldn't have done if she was, like it's a complicated,
it's a complicated feeling.
Yeah.
But the sharing the rocks and finding new rocks and doing those kind of things to feel like I'm bringing her with us is super helpful for me.
I love that.
Because then I feel like Zion's doing it with us instead of apart from us. And we're bringing her memory into the adventure and into the fun.
This is totally not a podcast question, but how would you feel if so you babysit grandkids, right? Like, do they ever use the crib? Could they use the crib? Would you want them to use the crib? Like, would that be like...
For me, it's a no.
You know what I mean? Like, how would that feel?
Yeah. Like, her stuffed animals are in the crib and they don't get to play with those stuffed animals. There's other of her toys that I've gotten out and that we play with. But there's other things that they get to look at and they know they're Auntie Z's. Like, we don't touch Auntie Z's stuff. That's Auntie Z's.
Like ripping down the Christmas tree.
Yes, my grandson did rip down Zion has her own Christmas tree. But like her special chair is still in the living room where it belongs, in my opinion. Because there's always a seat for Zion. No matter how many people are in the room, there's always a seat for Zion.
I love that. That's cute.
And I mean, thankfully, I have a big enough living room that it's fine. It doesn't affect anybody else's seating arrangement.
Right. It's not in the way.
It is a little more tucked in the corner because my grandkids were sitting on I have a bear that weighs as much as Zion did when she passed away, which is 24 pounds and 2 ounces, in case anyone else wants to know.
That's a big bear.
But the kids were climbing on the bear and the beads started coming out of the bear. So
No, that's not okay.
So we had to move the bear.
We could go there for a minute, I guess. Tell me about some specific organizations, whether local or national, that helped you either during your journey or after. Like, I'm specifically thinking of like Beads of Courage and Molly Bears and any other,
We didn't qualify for Molly Bears because she didn't pass away as an infant. Although I still wanted one.
Right.
The Beads of Courage program, I don't know if Sacred Heart still does it, but when Zion, she lived for 1,259 days. And during her 1,259 days, she spent approximately 170 of those days in the pediatric intensive care for various reasons. After her heart surgery, she really struggled and was in there for 59 days. So that was an adventure. But they gave out beads of courage. So every bead is a different color. Not every bead. Different beads of different colors represent different things. So like the yellow beads are the days in the hospital. Rainbow beads are days that she had therapy when she was in the hospital. Lots of different color beads, but they're really beautiful because there's so many different bright, beautiful colors. That it really was, when she was in the hospital, it was actually really fun because I'd collect the beads. And then when the kids would come, because they had school and stuff. So when they came to the hospital on the weekends, then we would string up all the beads and we would talk about all the things that Zion had experienced that week in the hospital. And it was just a fun and beautiful way to demonstrate how courageous and beautiful her life was, even though she had struggles. She still had a beautiful life here. So I actually have the beads. I had a special coffee table made that has a glass case. So the beads are displayed in the living room so that, again, it's a way to bring up conversation and to talk about my girl when people come over.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, your kid gets like outstanding student of the month or whatever. Like, you pop that bad boy certificate on the refrigerator, right? Like, mm-hmm. This is Zion's I did a good job thing, right?
Yeah.
Is those beads.
Well, it's kind of a fun way for when people do come over to comfortably bring up when they ask about my daughter who passed away. Like, it's a comfortable way to talk about her that I feel like it doesn't feel as scary for people when they ask about
just ask, like, what is this? And then you can explain it. And we have a shelf for Emily and the same thing. Lots of people will ask about it. There's lots of butterflies and some really beautiful paintings and stuff. And saying like it's an easy way to bring it up without it being like in your face. Not everybody wants to talk about your dead baby, but at the same time, like, if you want to know about my family, you have to know this important piece of information.
Yeah. I will always tell you I have 6 children. I'm never going to tell you I have 5 children because I have 6. One of them happens to live in heaven, but I'm not going to tell you I have 5 kids.
Yeah. And I'm still working on that because my default answer is always 2, just because I don't always have the time or the ability to launch into the whole story. And sometimes I'm also not comfortable having that conversation with people. And so I often find myself saying 2 and then wishing that I would have said 3.
3. For me, my answer is always 6. And if people say, how old are they? And then I tell them. But I always end with, and my youngest daughter is 7, but she lives in heaven. That's what I say. It doesn't matter if you're a stranger at the grocery store or someone at church. I will tell you, I have a daughter. She's 7 and she lives in heaven. And she passed away when she was 3.5. That's for me.
Well, and you had 3 years of practice saying how many kids you had, right? Like,
right. Yeah. Like Zion was here longer.
2 months.
Yeah.
And I didn't have all of my kids at that time, so I still only had 2.
It's a different, and everybody's different though with how they do it and how they explain it,
Yeah.
Because my friend whose daughter passed away 50 something years ago, if you ask her, she only has 2 kids, but she really has 3.
Yeah.
But she won't talk about the one who passed away.
Yeah.